Hello, BookTube. We're continuing with the bookshelf tour. We did up here, which was language, anthologies. We got into poetry. We ended up with some Chaucer, but I'm going to stop here and go back and do Shakespeare over here. I have a section over here that's Shakespeare. And they're hard to handle, so I'm going to have Deb do the camera. I'm not used to talking like this. I'm used to it being settled, so we'll see how I do. I'm going to take a drink of this, put it down, and then I'll be right back with you. All right, so here, get the back of my balding head. This is just a little volume when we get out of the way. This is upside down. I'm getting rid of a lot of these. This is the first part of King Henry IV by William Shakespeare, edited by George Lyman Kittredge. They sort of look like this. This thing would have come out out of Boston in 1940. It's the Athenaeum Press. Gin and Company, proprietors, Boston, USA. Not a lot of helpful notes here. So, I'm moving away from those, and you'll see why here in a minute. But here, to start with, is a beast. Oh, it's actually very heavy. This is A.L. Rouse, The Annotated Shakespeare. The box looks like this. Edited with an introduction, notes, and biography and bibliography by A.L. Rouse. 1,200 illustrations. We have comedies, histories, sonnets, and other poems, tragedies, and romances. And I'll just take out one and give you an idea. So this is how it looks. So this is tragedy and romances. Let's see. Clarkson and Potter Incorporated, publishers, New York. So this is the third of the volumes. And this came out in 1978. To give you an idea on the pages. Heavily illustrated. Notes. Very useful. So here we have Richard Burton. But as you can tell, maybe fine for here when I'm working on Shakespeare's plays, but maybe not so good if I was reading. So at the library, in the wintertime, we do a Shakespeare play every winter. We don't put on a big production. We sit as a group and we read through the play, each of us taking a part, or consecutive parts. This is more like what I will use this year. This is Riverside Shakespeare. This is actually a gift to me from Steve Donahue. The advantage of this is the notes. They're excellent. A lot of background. See if I can find something. So here's the story of the text. Always these wonderful images, and this is what I'll use this year. I've always wanted a copy of this, so thank you, Steve. Here's the reason why I'm getting rid of the smaller Kittredge, and that's the complete works of Shakespeare, and this is the Kittredge volume. This is the Player's Illustrated Edition. This George Lyman Kittredge, Gurney Professor of English Literature at Harvard, illustrated with photographs of actual productions of the Old Vic Company in London, the Memorial Theatre at Stratford-upon-Avon, and other theatres throughout England. This is a Grolier publication out of New York. This came out in 1936, again in Boston. So you have these old images of the play. That's why I keep this. Again, the plays themselves don't have the notes that I would normally need about language and that sort of thing. So on this, the tragedy of King Richard III, you have Laurence Olivier. So that sort of thing is fun to see, and I enjoy this book for that. I sit down and maybe we'll look through that, but not very practical if I'm studying a play. I need the helps with the language. So I got a wine glass over there and my cat's jumping next to it. He's making me very nervous. If you hear a crash, this video's over. The next thing here is Harold Bloom, who you'll notice keeps showing up in my videos. I'm a big fan. This is Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human. Right here, and then right here is Mr. Bloom. Currently reading, I got it right here actually, Possessed by Memory, which is a wonderful book. I'm making progress. We talked about that the other day and had quite a few people saying that you were either going to read it or had just read it. So this came out with Riverhead Books, which is part of Penguin Putnam, New York. This came out in 1998. And it runs you through each play. Like here's King John. You get Harold Bloom's take and insights as one of the world's great readers. Then another volume that I think is equally as good. This is Marjorie Garber. This is Shakespeare After All. Same type of thing. She runs through each of the plays. When did this come out? This is Pantheon Books, New York. This is the first edition from 2004. And then we have a lovely picture of the author with her friends. So, this is a very, very handy book. Then on this first A.L. Rouse, we have another A.L. Rouse. And this is Shakespeare the Man. There's many, many, many biographies of Shakespeare out there. This is Harper and Row Publishers, New York. And this came out in 1973. I liked it. Again, Rouse has his own opinions. A lot of this stuff with Shakespeare can be a bit of conjecture. But Rouse knows the Elizabethan period. So another biography here. This one you probably couldn't go to a yard sale or a library book sale at least a few years ago and not see. This is Shakespeare of London. It's Marchette Chute. Very famous book. Very readable book. E.P. Dutton and Company Incorporated Publishers, New York. And this is, it says it's the first edition in 1949, but I'm pretty sure this is a book club edition, so it's really not a first edition. One way to tell that is look here and, yep, Book of the Month Club selection, or you'll notice a lot of times they don't have a price. Another thing you used to be able to do, sometimes, yeah, right here, this is a weird little bookish thing. I don't know if it'll pick up on the camera, but there's a little dent, a little round. Sometimes they're square. That's a sign it's a book club edition. I don't know if the later book club editions did that, but for a long time that was one way you could tell. And this still has the little flyer that talks about the fact, talks about the book, but it's from the Book of the Month Club. So the end papers here show Shakespeare's London. See if I get that out there. So yeah, good biography, nice one to have. There have been many. Here we have William Shakespeare by Ivor Brown, International Profiles. It's a little hardback. This very brief biography came out in 1968. Heavily illustrated by it's a good scholar doing the piece, but it's one of these introductory little lives. So I have this probably out of nostalgia's sake as much as anything else. Here's one I'm reading right now. This is A Year in the Life of William Shakespeare, 1599. Paperback thing by James Shapiro. About that far along. This is HarperCollins Publishing. And this is from 2005. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. So, one of those is, I see it in American Revolution books. 1774, 1775, 1776. Shakespeare gets the same treatment. This is very different. This is Shakespeare Calendar. Lovely little thing. This is the Chandos portrait of Shakespeare, which you'll see all over the place. Got the little onion skin. I can do this without ripping it. Edited by Agnes Caldwell Way, New York, Thomas Crowell and Company, publishers. And this came out in 1908, and it's a calendar. It goes through the year, gives you little quotes from each day. So January the 1st, honor and fortune keep with you, from Timon of Athens. Or let's do another month. August 9, the gentleness of the gods go with you, from the 12th night. So it's interesting. I don't remember if this had illustrations or anything. No, it doesn't. So this was probably somebody's prized possession. Then I told you earlier with like the annotated Shakespeare with Rouse and with the Riverside Shakespeare, I like them because of the notes. I know the Ardens is the same way. There's other ones that are good for that. But I also like reading about the language. This is a Shakespeare grammar. This is a Dover book. A Shakespeare grammar, an attempt to illustrate some of the differences between Elizabethan and modern English. Modern being sort of modern when this was written. This is a reprint. This would have come out in 1870, but it's still useful. And if you're studying the language, it can be helpful. But a more modern and wonderful treatment. Up here, we talked about David Crystal. We had David Crystal's Cambridge Encyclopedia of the English Language. We had David Crystal's The Stories of English. We had David Crystal, A Little Book of Language. And here we have David Crystal and his son Ben. Shakespeare Words, a glossary and language companion, with a preface by Stanley Wells. Absolutely incredible volume. Now, David Crystal is one of the foremost authorities on the English language alive, bar none. Ben, his son, took an undergraduate degree in linguistics. And Ben became an actor after that. So they teamed up, and I think it added insight to the work. So this is a comprehensive look at Shakespeare's language, gives you helps, tells you what's going on. So here's one on swearing. I'm not going to read it, but you get the idea. Absolutely fantastic. So a wag, a fellow, a lad, a mischievous boy, Falstaff to Prince Hall. I prithee, sweet wag. So they work through it. Yawn words. The yawn series of words in English always carry the suggestion that an object is some distance away but visible. It gives you examples. So it can be very helpful and fun to just sit down and read. Then we have Me and Shakespeare by Herman Gollab. The Adventures with the Bard. Gollab was an author who was very successful as a book editor and Broadway. He watched a Broadway production of Hamlet, turned around, went full-bore into Shakespeare, and this is that story. It's a good one. A lot of these types of books over the centuries. Now we get to the piece de la resistance. And that's as good as I could do that. This is the best book in my library. So why does it have dust on the top? It doesn't anymore. This is the letterpress Shakespeare, A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's in this lovely box. I'm going to struggle a little bit. I'm going to open it so that you can see how it looks housed. If I destroy this thing doing this, I am going to be heartbroken. It's very hard. It's meant to be done on a table. So this is how it looks when you open it this way. If you open it there, see if I can do this gently. Here, goat leather is the play with the letterpress printing. This is a cardboard top. And in here is Midsummer Night's Dream, one of these editions that gives you the notes. So I'm going to put this down here, and I'm going to, off camera, hand this to my wife. I'm going to close, well, so you can see how this is bedded in here. Okay. So I'm going to close this up for a minute and go through the letterpress part, and then I'll go through the rest. So here, this marbling, we'll get to the name of the artist who did that. This is the goat leather, obviously green. The goat was not green. End papers are rather plain. Nice, beautiful. You can tell the minute you feel deckled edges, you can feel this is handmade paper. So here's the title page. Very simple. Here's the London Folio Society, 2008. William Shakespeare, A Midsummer Night's Dream, edited by Peter Holland. The title is in green, the rest is in black. By arrangement, Oxford University Press. The letterpress Shakespeare is published by the Folio Society. General editor is Stanley Wells. Printed in Great Britain. The letterpress Shakespeare, A Midsummer Night's Dream, typeset in monotype Baskerville with Castellon display by Gloucester Typesetting Services, Stonehouse, Gloucester. Printed by hand in I letterpress, London, on Zerkow mold-made paper, so use a paper mold. Bound by hand at the craft bindery of G. Lockenmeyer, in Nigerian goatskin leather and marble paper by Anne Muir. So she did the marbling on the cover. The edition is limited to 3,750 numbered copies for sale to members of the Folio Society, and 25 lettered copies which are not for sale. This is copy E. So this is one of the copies that was not for sale. I'll give you some of the pages. I lost my little, I don't want to drop that because that's all letterpress. And the print size is beautiful. We have line numbers. So this is my prized possession. So let me put this back. The volume that comes with it is here. Is basically, and you can order these volumes from the Folio Society, I think at a pretty good price now. Oxford University Press, Midsummer Night's Dream, edited by Peter Holland. And this is 1994. So you have a big, long introduction. I mean, the introduction's half the book, right? And then you have these wonderful notes to go with the play. So these individual volumes, so the comedies are one color, the histories another, the tragedies another. So you can order these separately now. I see they run a sale on them every once in a while, but they originally went with my letterpress, and just wonderful books. The story of the letterpress is sort of interesting. I was in Florida. I think my son may have already been born or been on his way. And the postman knocks on the door, and I'm at home that day, and he had a bag, like a burlap sack, but it was like a white plastic burlap, and it had Her Royal Majesty's Postal Service type stuff, and we both thought it looked really cool. It's like, wow, what's this? And I could tell he wanted to know what it was in it, but he gave it to me, and I went inside and opened it up, and then there was this big box. I opened the box up, and that's what I found. I thought, oh, they made a mistake. We ordered from the Folio Society all the time, but I knew the minute I looked through this thing that there's no way I was going to afford this. So I called my wife and told her about it, and I really wanted it. I didn't want to know what the price was. And she goes, no, we get a baby on the way, or we have a baby already. The book I remember. The baby I sort of remember. And, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm going to have to package this up, find out how to send it back. Then she calls a couple hours later and goes, oh yeah, I forgot. I entered you in a contest. So I got to keep it. I got to keep the book. And we looked on the website, and we're the second ones to ever be on this long-running contest. We're second ones to ever win. And that's my Shakespeare story, and I'm sticking to it. But it was wonderful. It's a treasure, absolute treasure, and love it. So that, with that being said, this Shakespeare part is done. We'll pick up with some Milton and move to some more poetry here in a bit. We went apple picking today. Pears, we picked pears. Children had fun, which we allow once in a while, and we had a good time. So autumn is here, and I hope you all enjoyed your weekend. Thank you, BookTube.